By virtue of the power vested in me, I hereby perform this wedding ceremony.
Queer actors faced a brutal choice: hide, comply, or watch everything crumble. Most chose silence and survival. But for some, the weight of secrecy, rumors, arrests, or outright refusal to conform proved too much. Their careers were derailed, limited, stalled, or destroyed, not by lack of talent, but by a system that demanded they erase who they were. Today, we uncover the stories of 14 old Hollywood actors whose queerness cost them everything the spotlight had promised.
Mind if I stick around and play a tune or two for you on the piano, do you?
William Haynes. We begin with William Haynes, the silent era's wisecracking superstar who dared to choose love over stardom. Born Charles William Haynes on January 2, 1900, in Staunton, Virginia, to a cigar-making father and a mother who raised him amid hardship, young Billy ran away at 14 with a boyfriend to Hopewell, Virginia. There, they worked in a DuPont factory and ran a dance hall that may have doubled as a brothel before a town fire scattered them. Haynes landed in New York, modeling and winning a Goldwyn Pictures New Faces of 1922 contest that brought him to Hollywood at age 22. His breakthrough came fast. Bit parts gave way to Three Wise Fools in 1923. Then, Little Annie Rooney opposite Mary Pickford in 1925, and The Star-making Brown of Harvard in 1926, where his arrogant yet charming leading man formula, wisecracking hero humbled in the final reel, made him MGM's golden boy. By the late 1920s, he was a top 5 box office draw with hits like Tell It to the Marines in 1926, Spring Fever in 1927, Show People in 1928 with Marion Davies, and West Point in 1928. He transitioned to talkie smoothly, and starring in Alias Jimmy Valentine in 1928, and topping the Quigley poll as America's #1 attraction in 1930. But off-screen, Haynes lived openly. On a 1926 New York trip, he met James "Jimmy" Shields, convinced him to move to Los Angeles as an extra, and the two began a committed partnership that lasted 47 years. They viewed themselves as married. Joan Crawford later called them the happiest married couple in Hollywood. They lived together without apology. The end came in 1933. Haynes was arrested at a YMCA in Los Angeles with a sailor he'd picked up in Pershing Square. Louis B. Mayer summoned him and issued a stark ultimatum: end the relationship with Shields, enter a sham lavender marriage for PR, or lose everything. Haynes refused, reportedly choosing Shields without hesitation. Mayer tore up his contract. No major studio would touch him again. His final films were low-budget Poverty Row efforts like Young and Beautiful and The Marines Are Coming in 1934. By 1935, at the height of his fame, Haynes walked away from acting entirely. He and Shields built a legendary interior design business, decorating for Crawford, who dubbed him Cranberry, Gloria Swanson, Carol Lombard, Marion Davies, George Cukor, Jack Warner, Frank Sinatra, and later Betsy Bloomingdale, Ronald and Nancy Reagan, and even the Annenberg's Winfield House in London. Their all-white decor for Crawford launched an empire that thrived into the 1970s. In 1972, they traveled Europe together. Diagnosed with lung cancer, Haynes died on December 26, 1973, at St. John's Hospital with Shields at his side. Shields, unable to go on, died by suicide on March 6, 1974, leaving a note. Goodbye to all of you who have tried so hard to comfort me in my loss of William Haynes, whom I have been with since 1926. I now find it impossible to go it alone. They rest side by side at Woodlawn Memorial Cemetery. Haynes, Hollywood's first openly gay star, chose authenticity when almost no one else could. His story remains the clearest case of outright blacklisting for refusing to hide.
The excitement of the chase, the thrill of conquest.
Ramon Novarro. Next is Ramon Novarro, the Mexican-born Latin lover whose silent-era glory faded under the weight of rumors. Born Ramon Gil Samaniego on February 6, 1899, in Durango City, Mexico, to a prominent family with Spanish and Aztec roots. His grandfather had been a physician and interim governor. Novarro fled the Mexican Revolution in 1913 with his parents and 12 siblings, settling in Los Angeles. He started with uncredited bits in 1917 films like The Jaguar's Claws and The Little American, working as a singing waiter and taxi dancer to survive. Rex Ingram and Alice Terry helped rebrand him as Rudolph Valentino's rival, changing his name to Novarro. Stardom exploded with Scaramouche in 1923, and especially Ben-Hur in 1925, as Judah Ben-Hur, where his revealing costumes made him a sex symbol, earning over $100,000 per picture. Post-Valentino's 1926 death, he became MGM's top Latin lover in The Student Prince in Old Heidelberg in 1927, opposite Norma Shearer. Across to Singapore in 1928 with Joan Crawford, The Pagan in 1929, Mata Hari in 1931, opposite Greta Garbo, and The Barbarian in 1933 with Myrna Loy. His talkie transition brought singing roles, but MGM let his contract expire in 1935 amid persistent homosexuality rumors. He never fully recovered leading man status, drifting into character parts like The Sheik Steps Out in 1937, We Were Strangers in 1949, and TV guest spots on Dr. Kildare, Combat, Bonanza, and The High Chaparral until 1968. Novarro struggled privately with his Roman Catholic faith and sexuality, leading to alcoholism. Early affairs included composer Harry Parch and publicist Herbert Howe. He later hired male escorts at his lavish Laurel Canyon home. No long-term partner softened the isolation. On October 30th, 1968, two young brothers, Paul and Tom Ferguson, whom he had invited over after they offered services via a prior contact, robbed and tortured him for hours in his North Hollywood home, believing he hid cash. They beat him fatally. Now he asphyxiated on his own blood. The brothers were convicted but paroled in the mid-1970s. Novarro died at 69, buried at Calvary Cemetery. His murder, tied directly to his private life, capped a career that began with epic glory and ended in supporting roles in tabloid shadows. Another victim of the era's demand for secrecy.
Didn't you ever see something you wanted so bad, you just had to have it?
Elizabeth Scott. Elizabeth Scott, the sultry film noir queen whose voice and image defined toughness, saw her momentum shatter under a single exposé. Born Emma Virginia Matzo on September 29, 1922, in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the oldest of six in a Rusin Ukrainian family running Matzo Market, she performed in school plays, worked stock theater, and moved to New York at 18 for modeling and stage work. She toured in Hellzapoppin for 18 months, understudied Tallulah Bankhead in The Skin of Our Teeth, and caught Hal Wallace's eye, leading to her Paramount debut in You Came Along in 1945. She became the ultimate noir femme in The Strange Love of Martha Ivers in 1946, opposite Barbara Stanwyck, Dead Reckoning in 1947 with Humphrey Bogart, Desert Fury in 1947 with Burt Lancaster, I Walk Alone in 1948, Pitfall in 1948, and her pinnacle, Too Late for Tears, in 1949 as the ultimate gold-digging schemer. Polls named her a top star of tomorrow. But in 1954, Confidential magazine published an exposé implying she was a lesbian, dubbing her part of Baritone Babes. She sued for defamation, but the damage was done. Her leading lady trajectory stalled. Later films like The Company She Keeps in 1951 and Scared Stiff in 1953 with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis felt forced. She parted from Wallace in 1954, attempted stage and TV, but never regained her noir dominance. Scott died in 2015. Her legacy, as a hard-boiled icon forever linked to the tabloid that exposed the rumors she could never fully escape.
Being an intelligence officer, I shouldn't have told Aunt Wendy, but I am from Mars.
Tommy Kirk. Tommy Kirk, Disney's wholesome teen idol, was personally fired by Walt himself when his sexuality surfaced. Born Thomas Lee Kirk on December 10, 1941, in Louisville, Kentucky, to a mechanic father and legal secretary mother, the family moved to Downey, California. At 12, he landed a stage role in Awe Wilderness after tagging along with his brother, leading to Disney Discovery in 1956 for the Hardy Boys serial on the Mickey Mouse Club. He became the studio's clean-cut star in Old Yeller in 1957 as Travis Coates, the Shaggy Dog, in 1959 as Wilby Daniels, Swiss Family Robinson in 1960 as Ernst Robinson, The Absent-Minded Professor in 1961, Babes in Toyland in 1961, Bon Voyage in 1962, Savage Sam in 1963, and the massive hits The Misadventures of Merlin Jones in 1964, and The Monkey's Uncle in 1965, opposite Annette Funicello. He was the boy next-door idol, paired in romances and family adventures that defined 1950s to 60s youth cinema. But in 1963, during Merlin Jones, 21-year-old Kirk began a relationship with a 15-year-old boy. Caught having sex at a Burbank pool, the boy's mother alerted Disney. Walt Disney personally fired him, though he allowed one final film after Merlin Jones's success. Being openly gay ended his Disney contract and blacklisted him from family-oriented Hollywood. Post-Disney, he spiraled into low-budget AIP films like Pajama Party in 1964, Village of the Giants in 1965, The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini in 1966, and drive-in fare, like Mars Needs Women in 1968. Arrested in 1964 for suspected marijuana and facing drug charges, he battled addiction, nearly dying of overdose in 1966 and in a 1967 drunk driving crash. He quit drugs by 1968, but struggled with alcohol and financial woes. Later attempts at comebacks included a 1973 Streets of San Francisco episode, but SAG risks and typecasting limited him. Kirk came out publicly later, reflecting on Disney as terrible for a gay man. He died in 2021, his early promise cut short by the very studio that made him a star.
Chair, please. I'm bored hearing about the Stone Age.
George Nader. George Nader, the Universal contract player whose career was allegedly sacrificed to protect a bigger star, shifted to Europe when Hollywood closed doors. Born George Garfield Nader Jr. on October 19, 1921, in Pasadena, California, to Lebanese-descended parents. He earned a theater arts degree from Occidental College and served in the Navy during World War II. After Pasadena Playhouse work, he broke through in the infamous 3D cult flop Robot Monster in 1953, then signed with Universal, starring alongside Rock Hudson in films like Four Guns to the Border in 1954, Six Bridges to Cross in 1955, The Second Greatest Sex in 1955, Lady Godiva in 1955, winning Golden Globe New Star, Congo Crossing in 1956, Away All Boats in 1956, and The Female Animal in 1958. He led TV series like Ellery Queen in 1959 and The Man and the Challenge in 1959-60. Discreetly gay, Nader lived openly in private with partner Mark Miller, met in 1947. Rumors persist that Universal traded information about Nader's sexuality to kill a confidential story outing Hudson, now effectively pushing Nader out of mainstream features. He relocated to German cinema in the 1960s, starring as FBI agent Jerry Cotton in a popular spy series starting with Tread Softly in 1965 through Dead Body on Broadway in 1969, plus international films like The Million Eyes of Sumuru in 1967 and Beyond Atlantis in 1973. Later, TV included The FBI and Nokia. Nader died in 2002. Miller, Hudson's secretary, inherited part of Hudson's estate with him. Nader's quiet exile to Europe exemplified how studios traded one star's reputation to shield another.
Gee, Mr. Van Buren, give me one more chance, will you? I love the Senators.
Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter, the 1950s teen heartthrob with the golden voice, lived in constant fear of exposure. Born Arthur Andrew Kelm on July 11, 1931, in Manhattan to a German immigrant mother and abusive Jewish father, he grew up in California after his parents' divorce. The figure skated competitively and lied about his age to join the Coast Guard at 15. Discovered by agent Henry Wilson, he was renamed Tab Hunter and debuted in The Lawless in 1950. Hits followed: Island of Desire in 1952, Battle Cry in 1955 as the top-grossing film of the year, The Sea Chase in 1955 with John Wayne, The Burning Hills in 1956, and The Girl He Left Behind in 1956 with Natalie Wood. His single, Young Love, topped charts for 6 weeks in 1957, selling millions. Warner Brothers manufactured fake romances to protect his image. But in the mid-1950s, Hunter faced a gay party raid arrest and confidential threatened exposure. The studio suppressed it with planted dates. He bought out his contract in 1959 for $100,000, calling it one of his worst decisions as protection vanished. Roles dried to supporting parts in Damn Yankees in 1958. They came to Cordura in 1959, and low-budget fare like Operation Bikini in 1963. He starred in the Tab Hunter Show sitcom and later revived in John Waters' Polyester in 1981 and Lust in the Dust in 1985. Hunter came out publicly in his 2005 memoir, revealing his long-term relationship with Alan Glazer. He died in 2018, his heartthrob years haunted by the scandal that nearly ended him. Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins, the sensitive star forever linked to Norman Bates, endured conversion therapy and a lavender marriage while his romantic lead potential faded. Born April 4, 1932, in New York to actor Osgood Perkins and Janet Raine, he lost his father at 5, suffered maternal abuse, and grappled with sexuality amid the Lavender Scare. Broadway in Tea and Sympathy in 1953 led to film debut The Actress in 1953, then Oscar-nominated Friendly Persuasion in 1956. Paramount pushed him as matinee idol in Fear Strikes Out in 1957, Desire Under the Elms in 1958, Green Mansions in 1959 with Audrey Hepburn, and On the Beach in 1959. But rumors forced conversion therapy and a 1973 marriage to Barry Berenson, with whom he had sons Oz and Elvis. Studios steered him from romance to character work. Psycho in 1960 typecast him forever. He moved to Europe for Goodbye Again in 1961, Cannes Best Actor. The Trial in 1962, and later Pretty Poison in 1968, Murder on the Orient Express in 1974, and directed Psycho 3 in 1986. Perkins died of AIDS in 1992 at 59. His torment, hiding bisexuality under studio pressure, mirrored the era's psychological toll.
Putting out my hands. I want you to put your hands into mine.
Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift, the tormented method icon, paid with his health and career for the secrecy demanded of him. Born October 17, 1920, in Omaha to a wealthy but fractured Quaker family, he debuted on Broadway at 14 in Fly Away Home in 1935 and starred in There Shall Be No Night in 1940. Film breakthrough came with Red River in 1948 and The Search in 1948, earning his first Oscar nomination. Hits included A Place in the Sun in 1951, second nomination, From Here to Eternity in 1953, third, and The Young Lions in 1958. Bisexual and tormented by closeting, he endured studio image control and substance abuse. A 1956 car crash after leaving Elizabeth Taylor's home shattered his face, requiring plastic surgery. Pain led to addiction. Post-crash decline saw suddenly last summer in 1959. The Misfits in 1961, and a powerful judgment at Nuremberg in 1961, fourth nomination. Barred from films for years, he narrated and took The Defector in 1966. Clift died in 1966 at 45. His brilliance came at the cost of a body and spirit broken by the closet.
I didn't know that you came here.
Oh, well, I work out in the gym upstairs.
Sal Mineo. Sal Mineo, the sensitive teen from Rebel Without a Cause, watched leading roles vanish as he lived more openly. Born Salvatore Mineo Jr. on January 10, 1939. In The Bronx to Sicilian Coffin Makers, he debuted on stage at 12 in The Rose Tattoo and The King and I. Film breakthrough. Rebel Without a Cause in 1955 as Plato, earning Oscar nomination at 16. Follow-ups included Giant in 1956, Tonka in 1958, Exodus in 1960, second nomination, and The Longest Day in 1962. Bisexual and increasingly open in the 1960s, he faced typecasting in smaller parts like Who Killed Teddy Bear in 1965 and Escape from the Planet of the Apes in 1971. A 6-year relationship with Courtney Burr III lasted until his death. On February 12, 1976, Mineo was stabbed to death at 37 in his West Hollywood carport by mugger Lionel Ray Williams. His openness in a still repressive industry shifted him from idol to supporting player. His murder left a legacy of unfulfilled promise.
All my children. Your son at the Student Employment Bureau sent me.
Clifton Webb. Clifton Webb, the elegant character actor whose effete persona confined him to non-romantic roles, thrived within limits set by his image. Born Webb Parmalee Hollenbeck on November 19, 1889 in Indianapolis, he moved to New York with his mother Mabel after his parents separated. A Broadway dancer and singer from 1913 in shows like The Purple Road and Cole Porter Reviews, and he introduced standards like Easter Parade. Hollywood called late. Otto Preminger cast him as Waldo Lydecker in Laura in 1944, despite Zanuck's objections over his effeminacy. It earned an Oscar nomination. Successes followed. The Razor's Edge in 1946, second nomination. Sitting Pretty in 1948 as Lynn Belvedere, third. Cheaper by the Dozen in 1950. Three Coins in the Fountain in 1954. And The Man Who Never Was in 1956. Zanuck openly said he'd never get the girl, typecasting him as suave villains and know-it-alls. Webb lived with his mother until her 1960 death at 91, never marrying. Noel Coward quipped he was orphaned at 71. He died in 1966. His career succeeded precisely because he fit the safe, effete niche Hollywood allowed.
Hot Ensign Queek of 1937. There is no key.
Van Johnson. Van Johnson, MGM's freckled all-American boy, had his romantic trajectory capped by a studio-orchestrated lavender marriage. Born Charles Vandell Johnson on August 25, 1916, in Newport, Rhode Island, he moved to New York for Broadway in New Faces of 1936 and Pal Joey. MGM signed him after Warner dropped him. Hits included The Human Comedy in 1943, A Guy Named Joe in 1943, despite a near-fatal car crash leaving scars and a metal plate in his forehead. Two Girls and a Sailor. In 1944, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo in 1944, Thrill of a Romance in 1945, and The Caine Mutiny in 1954. Ranked top box office in 1945, he embodied the wholesome soldier or pilot. Rumors prompted MGM to engineer a 1947 lavender marriage to Evie Wynn, just divorced from Keenan Wynn, producing daughter Skylar. It quelled gossip but limited his leading man path. Later, freelancing brought Miracle in the Rain in 1956 and TV like The Pied Piper of Hamelin in 1957. Johnson died in 2008. The cover-up preserved his career, but at the cost of authenticity.
His name's Anthony.
Farley Granger. Farley Granger, the Hitchcock favorite, bought out his contract to escape studio control over his relationships. Born July 1, 1925 in San Jose, California, to a wealthy but bankrupt family, he debuted in the North Star in 1943 after a local audition. Goldwyn signed him. Loans to Fox brought the Purple Heart in 1944. Navy service followed, where he had his first same-sex experience. Back, he starred in Rope in 1948, with Arthur Lawrence beginning a year-long romance, and Strangers on a Train in 1951. Affairs included Leonard Bernstein briefly. Unhappy with Goldwyn assignments like Enchantment in 1948 and Edge of Doom in 1950, he bought out his contract at great cost, shifting to theater and Europe for Visconti's Senso in 1954 and The Naked Street in 1955. Granger lived openly bisexual, loving men and women without apology. He died in 2011. Leaving Hollywood freed him from the closet's constraints.
But he wants to meet you all the same.
John Gielgud. John Gielgud, the Shakespearean giant with Hollywood credits, nearly saw his screen work end after a 1953 arrest. Born April 14, 1904, in London to a theatrical dynasty, he dominated the stage as Hamlet, Richard II, and more, directing his own company. Film work was secondary until later. Julius Caesar in 1953 as Cassius, Beckett in 1964, Oscar-nominated, Arthur in 1981, Oscar win as Hobson. Openly gay with discreet partners, he was arrested in 1953 for importuning in a public lavatory, pleaded guilty, paid a fine, and was advised to leave the country temporarily. The scandal threatened his film career in a repressive era, though knighthood in 1953 and later successes like Providence in 1977 sustained him. Gielgud died in 2000 at 96. The arrest highlighted how even legends weren't immune.
Miss Clark, it's great to have you here. Now, if you want to make me completely happy...
Ross Alexander. Finally, Ross Alexander, the dapper Warner Brothers contract player, whose career and life ended in tragedy amid rumors and debt. Born Alexander Ross Smith, Jr. on July 27, 1907, in Brooklyn. He dropped out of high school, studied acting, and reached Broadway by 1926 in the latter. Warner signed him in 1934. Successes included Flirtation Walk in 1934, A Midsummer Night's Dream in 1935 as Demetrius, Captain Blood in 1935, and starring roles in Maybe It's Love in 1935, Boulder Dam in 1936, Brides Are Like That in 1936, Hot Money in 1936, and China Clipper in 1936. His glamorous, well-dressed persona stood apart from Warner's gangsters. Gay rumors swirled, amplified by his dapper style. First wife, Aleda Friel, suicided in 1935. He married Anne Nagel in 1936. Deep in debt despite steady work, demoted to sixth billing in Ready, Willing, and Able in 1937. He shot himself in the head on January 2, 1937, at 29 in the barn behind his home. Buried at Forest Lawn, his suicide, tied to financial ruin, personal loss, and closeted pressure, marked a heartbreaking end to unfulfilled promise. These 14 stories reveal the brutal reality beneath old Hollywood's glamour. The studio system, with its morality clauses and fixer culture, turned private lives into PR battlegrounds. Lavender marriages offered temporary shields, but for those who refused or were exposed, the cost was careers cut short, lives haunted by fear, and sometimes tragedy. William Haynes walked away on his terms. Others endured in silence or paid with their health, freedom, or lives. Today, as we celebrate progress, their resilience reminds us of the human price of conformity. The screen may have been silver, but the truth was often painfully real.